Going live, going live. Do 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 do. And it seems that we are live. Welcome to OreAni. Hard to believe, but we've been doing this for too long. But we're still
Actually didn't know the metric. Was looking forward to hearing it.
but but we're still going to keep on doing it as long as there's anime we watch and a wonderful group to share it with, right?
Indeed.
Yeah, so I'd like to introduce everyone. If you've been watching our show, you've already know everyone, but we got top here. I'll just go by what's on the screen, but we got Jessica up there.
Hi.
We got Nick with some kind of drink. We have myself.
Brisk.
We have myself. Hello. We have Vinny.
Thanks for having me.
And we have Sean.
Yellow.
The elusive Pokemon. Today's we're going to talk about 2020 spring season, and I would have to say I was somewhat disappointed at the start because it didn't seem like anything was coming out. That was until I left Crunchyroll to search for my anime. It didn't seem like Crunchyroll had much of anything except for season 2s of a bunch of stuff or continuations. So for the new stuff, I think it was Funimation, right? They had a lot of the new stuff.
Quite a bit, probably.
So for people who are looking for that stuff, Funimation. But let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with the longest anime title there is today for this season, and that just so happens to be this one, which is I'm gonna try to say this. Otome game. Give me a second.
You
Come
gave
on,
up already.
you can do it.
My cursor went on it and the link came up and it blocked the title. Sorry. Otome game no Hametsu flag shika nai akuyaku reijo ni tensei shimashita.
I think it's shite, not shita, but sure.
Almost.
A for effort.
Yes.
Well, let me try my English. My next life as a villainess. All routes lead to the doom.
There's no the.
Well, I like saying the.
Your English is terrible too.
Just I'm gonna go to Wikipedia and change it. So. Okay, so we got this Otome game, which I put off for the longest time. It wasn't until just maybe 2 days ago that I started watching this because I was like, not another isekai.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, come on, you love it.
I've read a few of the villainess type titles, and I have to say, maybe it's because I'm not into Otome games or anything like that, and I rather see cute girls rather than all they'd be shonen. That at first I was like, I don't want to watch this, but like I said, Crunchyroll didn't really have all that much, so I decided let's go ahead and check out this title, and I was actually really surprised. It turned out being a lot better than what I was expecting. It has a lot of really good humor, and rather than being a super OP character, she's just a very fun and lovable character right now, at least. So let me see who else has been watching this. Everyone except for Sean, I bet, right? Oh no, maybe.
Yeah, I haven't tapped into that one
Sean's
yet.
watching this?
Yeah, it's impossible, right?
Why
I'm watching this isekai thing.
Why are you watching this?
Who are you and what have you done with Sean?
Well, a friend of mine's watching it, so I figured I'll check it out. I thought it'd be unwatchable, but it's watchable. And I guess I like to see things that are. I like to see where trends are going. So if something's going to be the first at doing something, I'll watch it. And as far as I know, is this like the first for women isekai thing? Was there anything before this?
Well, it depends how you define it, because technically Fushigi Yugi is an isekai reverse harem, and that
Yeah.
was in the early 90s.
I guess when I
So,
think of like contemporary isekai, I don't mean just like you're zapped to a fantasy world, you know, because that's been around forever. But more
mhm.
like I'm
Well,
zapped to the world of my games slash anime slash
yeah, I
manga
was about to
slash
say
light
if we
novel
look from
slash.
the start point of like SAO, which is what people arguably say is the one that started like the hugest trend as of recent. I'm not sure. I'm not a pro at analyzing what series come out when.
So
I largely forget what year stuff happens in sometimes.
I'm not going to say this is the first title that does this, but I think it's maybe the first anime where a character is remembering their past life in another world rather than being resurrected or
Well, also that the lens is definitely female,
yeah.
too.
Because like we have a lot of resurrection where they're reborn and they already know that they're being reborn, like that. What was it, that Maggie grandson, whatever that was, Shofi?
Yeah.
He knew he was being reborn and everything. And it wasn't like he got his memories back. But this one
There's a
is
search like that.
this one I think is one of the very first, for at least for women, where she's she just gains her memories at a certain age due to an event of her past life.
She remembers that she was an otaku that played this world that she lives in as a ultimate game back in the day. And she's the villain in this story, the villain that always dies or something. Something terrible happens to this villain, like in every route.
Death or being exiled.
Yeah, it's like she's being murdered by the love interest or exiled or something. And she's like, okay, there's so many ways that my life can like end in tragedy. I need to figure out a way to prevent all of those from happening. So even though she's supposed to be the villainess and she's supposed to have these like kind of toxic relations with all these men and that cause all these conflicts, she sort of sees this coming and then she turns everything around. And
Well, I'd say even like a step beyond that, she's just actually not a villain. So she, as a person who's actually fundamentally like neutral to good, she kind of goes, I'm going to try to change like the histories of these characters to prevent the flags from being sent in the first place. And I'm also just generally going to be a nice person, like instead of a villain. But then, like, she thinks further outside of that too. Like, what if it still goes that route anyway? I guess I'll have to improve myself as a person to live in exile if I have to. But
yeah, you see
well,
these bits where she's like, I need to study farming just in case I get exiled. I can still live as a subsistence farmer, like outside of the palace or some shit.
and one thing I appreciate about her is, like me, she has a sweet tooth, so I'm just going to eat this ice cream mochi for no reason.
Yeah, well, that's anime.
I like it because even though she has a plan, it doesn't survive longer than the inception, really. But it ends up working out okay because deep down she's a caring person. And so even though she's trying her hardest to prevent these bad roots from occurring, even if the plan fails, because she's just so kind of go with the flow type impulsive character, but it's from a good place. So I like that. And as a player of Otome games, the threat is very real. There are some damn dark endings in those games, oh my word. So she's better be careful.
Have you seen anything of School Days? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, I have. That's not an Otome game, but
no, it's not.
But I also, if I could talk to Katarina, I would advise caution because she's going for the harem route, and everyone knows you never do that in your first playthrough. So,
Well, that's the thing about her. She's kind of like, as oblivious as some of the characters are. She kind of has that about herself, where she doesn't realize she's becoming the character of the harem herself.
Yeah, I'm almost anticipating some sort of twist where like now the hero becomes the villain and the roles are reversed, or some other villain
was
kind of
almost wondering if
fills
they're going to
in.
go that route too, but I don't think they will. But that's actually one of the things that I really warmed up to with this series was now that she's not like a terrible person. You can kind of see like it spent the first few episodes in her childhood when she's like roughly around the age of 7 or so. And then like around episode 4 or so it jumps to when the Otome game is actually supposed to start. So you've kind of been like spending this time in the childhood while she's setting certain things up. And then you get to see like this, her not like slice of life, but kind of slice of life attempt at high school as she's actually a good person and not a villain. And it's kind of nice knowing there's that character contrast here because like as she's like, going about her days just being a good person, she kind of remembers scenes that are happening anyway, but her character used to be like the center of them and now she's the one interfering like in them, and it's like, yeah, I like this series.
I think one of the big reasons why I haven't like bounced off of this like super quick is that the meta humor is kind of sectioned off into this like boardroom meeting, this sort of like she's in her imagination space, and her you know different shades of her personality are kind of deliberating. It's like, okay, we know this about the video game. What do we want to do? Like, what is the next plan of action to avert disaster? But then outside of that, you can just kind of watch it as like a normal shoujo anime that has this interesting premise of like, what if you could relive someone else's life, and you know everything. You have this like extensive biography of how that life went, like in your head, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna try and do something different. So it's kind of interesting in that sense. I don't know. I find it like cute and enjoyable, and
It's very cute.
Yeah. There is one thing that I found somewhat interesting about this show that other titles that I've read that are slightly different compared to this, where usually when they gain the memories, they work in tandem with the other personality or something like that. But it seems like her memory's personality is the one that's coming up top. Like her old self is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes me wonder, like, what happened to that? Is that going to resurface, or?
It doesn't seem like it. I kind of doubt that'll happen.
Yeah,
right?
I doubt it happened because of how this show is going. But that was always something in some other books I've read where they have two memories or two lives in one body.
So you're saying like, if that were the case in this one, then the villain inside would awaken, and then she would be oh.
But like she should have had all the etiquette and all this other stuff drilled into her even at a young age. So I'm like, why had she just all of a sudden forgot that, or is it her memories and her personality are just so strong that she just totally forgets everything that she was taught at a young age about being a noble lady?
I kind of see where he's coming from, but like, I think like when her memories awoken, it just her past life self kind of took over completely, and.
But that was one thing I found interesting about this, from my standpoint, because of all the other types of books I've read that have similar premise or similar things. So.
Like this genre of anime is already too meta. They have to make like a second level of meta for this. Where it's like, I'm trapped inside of an isekai anime. I don't know.
I get it.
But yeah, I think for this in particular, you're not supposed to overthink it. Like, unless they introduce it as like a deliberate element, then maybe you don't overthink it. Of like her in-world identity versus her past life identity.
The only other thing I had, like, I'm overthinking this show way too much, but the only other thing that I was wondering about is, like, what kind of language do they use? Because you see her writing in Japanese, so I was wondering is Japanese the normal language there, or is that now her new language?
Since it was an Otome game, I'm just going to go with the fact that, yes, it was Japanese. Japan typically makes games with Japanese in mind.
But, even in fantasy game settings, they make their own language and stuff. like in Descendants of a Bookworm, right? They have their own characters and language and things like that. So
Yeah, but I don't think she got reincarnated as a game. Like, that's just another world reincarnation, not as a game that was made in Japan.
I don't think this game is going to have like a thoroughly conceived world building, so
I'm just-
maybe you shouldn't overthink
yeah.
that either.
I'm just saying, I'm overthinking a lot of stuff, but there's just some things I was thinking about as I watched this.
Well, he's just trying to say he's doing to this show what I do to Nekopara.
But it's very fun, enjoyable show. I'm just kind of sad it took me so long to get into it, but at least I got to binge through her childhood days, and now we get to watch her through, what is it, high school or whatever.
Magic school,
system
yeah, I don't know.
that they're going through. But so if you have Crunchyroll and there's nothing else you're looking at, might as well check this out and see what it has for you.
I've never seen a magic school thing where the magic is like so backgrounded. I haven't seen anyone cast a spell since like episode 1 or 2.
Yeah, they actually do kind of say that nobility tends to hide their ability to even use magic, and like it's like further kind of intensified by the fact that as a villainess, I didn't know if it was like an inferiority complex thing, but like she even goes on to say at some point, yeah, my magic's actually not even that good anyway, so
Mhm.
I'm in magic school for something that's not that potent.
Yeah, it's just what you do as a noble. Just go to magic school, get that degree.
All right, so what title should we talk about next?
The other one with the longest title. You're obviously having to like keep track of the longer titles and go in that order.
Okay, so that was the.
I say sarcastically, don't actually have to.
That's okay. We can.
You
do
probably
it.
do it off like
You have to start from the longest title, and then we're gonna go reverse order.
So we got Ascendance of a Bookworm,
season 2.
or Hosoki, or
Honzuki, not no gems here.
Honzuki no Gekijoba.
And just ignore the subtitle.
Gekukujo.
Yep, that's the
this
longest
is
title.
Season 2. I'm not going to read all that other stuff.
No.
Season 2. So, yeah. This is picking up right where it left off. And actually, when I went to go back, I noticed that they dropped 2 episodes in between.
OPA, right?
Yeah. Of like some kind of little story that happened to be... I think it's like from one perspective and the other episodes from another perspective. It's kind of seemed like it tied together a little bit that way. Not 100%, but they did have that little extra episode or 2 there. And then it goes straight into her becoming a blue robe at the church. And it's still a great show. I'm still loving it. She finally gets to spoilers, but she gets to read her book. I was so happy for her.
Yeah, season 2 largely takes place as like kind of what's going on as she's been accepted into the church. So one of the kind of interesting things to me is it kind of moved away from like the family perspective. I think there's only been like a scene where like the father is seen bantering even about anything. Like even though she's kind of coming home like to and from home, her home's not really in the perspective so far. It's pretty much just been from the perspective of how she's integrating the church, how she's kind of learning her new role, and you know the clashes of she already kind of fundamentally had a hard time not knowing anything about the world she was reincarnated into, but you really can't hold that against her because she's also in like a 5, 6, 7-year-old in this one. So it's sometimes like it seems to me like they're expecting this small child to know too much about the world that she's in, and they're not really not that they're appreciating, they're just kind of ignoring the fact that she's as young as she is. And even though she seems wise beyond her years, because she actually is, um, that's always struck me a little bit odd here. But it's pretty much the story of how she's, mingling, or how she's learning to get along with like this church type role that she's taken. So I kind of like how you hit the ground running with this one. Season one did some really cool things where they had this, like, as she realized how she was reincarnated and figuring that out. I liked how that all was structured, but that can't be at play here because the story has moved on. So there are elements from the first season that are going to be different that this level of the story doesn't have to tackle. But I'm so far enjoying like how she and everybody are kind of working to get along in a sense. And I really kind of want to know how it's going to end. Like, is it just going to be about the church the whole time? Are we going to have any other aspect of the story? Who knows?
I'm just
I'll
wondering.
tell you at the end.
I'm just wondering when it's going to catch up to the beginning, because
when he like looked into how she knew what she knew.
yeah. So I was wondering if it's going to be the end of the season, is when they catch up
Seems
to when
that
she
way.
was looking into her memories, or maybe they're going to finally catch up to that and then move on and continue on to whatever story there is, because I think this is a pretty long book series. I'm not too sure. I'll have to look it up later, but
Yeah, it's a pretty long series. It's still ongoing, and I don't see how they will be able to catch up to it in season 2. Maybe like season 4, if
Yeah.
there's season 4.
yeah. But yeah, and it's still fun that everything that she does and everything that's going on still has something to do with her enjoying books and her wanting to be surrounded by books and have her life be with books. So like, even as she gets into other problems that are happening around her and she's inserting herself into those roles, they even ask her like, why are you doing this? She's like, well, I can't enjoy books with this in the back of my mind, so I got to do this. So I thought that was a kind of fun thing. So it's still cute, it's still lovable, and I do like how it's just continued on. It even give you like this last time or last season this happened. So hoping it continues and stays going the same pace it's gone. Anyone have anything to say about this?
Not really. I mean, if you watch season 1 and you enjoyed it, you'll probably just be watching season 2. And if you haven't watched the season 1 yet and wants to see it, I think you should definitely try to watch season 1 first, because there's really no jumping mid-season and try to figure out what the heck's going on at this point.
That is true.
I'm still kind of in it for whatever other innovation she's going to bring from the modern world to this new fantasy world she finds herself in. I liked how they just introduced food so far, but it's fine.
Pizza!
Every otaku's favorite food, supposedly. Okay, let's see here. The next, this is for you guys. Just type what you might want to talk about next in the chat, and I'll try to work it into the list rather than going by the longest names if you guys want to talk about something. But the next one is for title wise is the Kaguya-sama wa Kokurasetai Tensai Tachi no Renai Zonosen? Or
Junosen?
Kaguya-sama, The War of Love, or whatever that show is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Season 2. Love is War, that's what it is. Yeah, so this was a very popular show when it was out, right? Especially for that special ending episode. So
I actually wonder if they're just going to do another one of those at some point.
maybe. But I was actually surprised by I didn't know there was a second season coming out at all. So when I saw it come out, I was like, this is a nice surprise because I really enjoyed the show. It's just a nice comedy to enjoy when you have the time. And the good thing about it is like it's sectioned off into like 3 parts per episode. So even if you don't have a lot of time, you can probably just watch and then stop at one part and then continue off where you left off later on. You don't have to sit there and watch the whole episode to get the in one setting.
You know, my impression of the series so far is season 2. I think they've actually improved their craft with the animation. I noticed they're zooming in a lot more on characters, or they're just bringing a lot more, animation or emotion to a lot of what's going on. One of the things I would say I've probably been a little bitter about is the infrequency in which Shirogane wins. Like he's like the protagonist of the show. Like what the heck? How is it like not ending up in his victory at least a third of the time? But yeah, I mean, I just more of the antics as though season 1 introduced. But I just think that I don't know if they have a more detailed team to this. It just in my opinion, it just looked a lot more expressive, and I've been enjoying the show not just for the antics, but there's just the colors and the animation of it all.
Yeah. If you loved episode 1, I bet you're probably watching episode 2. That's all you can really say about it. Though, like with the other show, you may want to watch the first season before continuing on to the second season, because they do reference some things that did happen in season 1. So, but it's not like you're going to lose anything by not watching it. It's still an enjoyable show by itself. But I do kind of miss the opening where it's like where they were talking about love is war, how
They just, I mean, it's the
through.
same like artist. It's just, yeah, the song doesn't repeat as much.
But I like how the narrator at the beginning would talk about how it's a battlefield between.
Oh,
everything.
okay. It's not the song, but
Yeah.
that.
So
See, I'm probably the opposite.
So, yep, that was Kaguya Love is War. Not much to say about that except for Crunchyroll's got it. One of the few titles. But let's go ahead and go to this one here that's very far from Kaguya. And this is just Total War. Or it seems to me. I don't even know how to say it. Gelpnir?
Damned if I know. Gleipnir.
Gleipnir.
Come on, it's Norse. Everyone knows Norse, right?
Can you say that one more time?
I know Norse code.
Say that first 3 times.
Gleipnir?
Gleipnir.
Gleipnir?
Gleipnir.
Gleipnir, yeah. So I only watched one episode because I couldn't pronounce it, so... Now I think I can watch more. Now I know.
Dude, like on every title you've pronounced thus far, I guess you are technically watching them, so yeah, never mind. I have no complaints there.
So, yeah, this show... What is the show about? I only saw the first episode and I just got this rough idea of like maybe what's going to go on. All I know is that there's a manga on it, right?
So
Yeah.
it's kind of difficult to say like what this shows. If you say premise is like alien stuff or alien. He lost a lot of his friends were repressed in the form of coins. And his return to them and be this like medicine that can affect you on the cellular level to like
Nick,
turn you.
you were
Huh?
breaking up really bad.
Oh no, that's never fun. I don't know.
All I heard was there's this medicine that's really, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Oh Jesus, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say like because the premise of the show isn't necessarily like
There's
the
a
premise
medicine?
of the show. Yeah, there's a medicine.
Okay.
Well,
I
that's
mean
like
that
what the
that's kind of a spoiler, isn't it? Because all we
No.
know is that like someone gets a coin and goes up to a magic vending machine, and then this weird man pops out of the vending machine, and like Satan himself asks you, "Do you want the power?" But
Well,
it'll
yeah, but
cost you
like
your soul.
the vending machine always spits out a bottle of soda, and that's essentially the medicine because that's like what gives people the power.
They become magical girls.
But yeah, essentially, that's the like you don't necessarily find this out until later. But the premise, as I was saying, was there's an alien life has come to Earth. His ship has crash landed somewhere. His friends are compressed in the form of coins for some reason, and
That's
technology.
that's a spoiler bomb. I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
not that I'm gonna watch the rest of
Yeah,
the
but like it
here,
doesn't. If it's a spoiler, it's only because it's like halfway into the series. But like,
I mean, right
so
now they're trying to discover like what these coins are about. You just told me everything.
I had the idea all along anyway.
Put the
So.
spoiler tag out. Put the spoiler tag out.
But yeah, like it presents itself as a psychological show, which it really is, because you don't find about the premise just by watching episode 1. But essentially, it's like a hunt for these coins, because like if you find the coin and you return it to the alien guy, you can change yourself at the cellular level in some way, and that's largely what a lot of people do. The protagonist of this show is kind of at a loss though, because somebody else used that thing on him unknowingly, which kind of gets like that's how you have this like amnesia type opening. But he's kind of at a loss for why he's become different, for something that's happened to him, and it's almost like this weird kind of a yeah, like it's this like death game style story with a lot of more of a psychological spin than I've seen come out of these, battle royale or like super, like it's not even really like a game fight, but kind of. I have difficulty defining its genre plainly.
Yeah, I mean,
But I
my
can't
my
with
my
elements.
take on it is that it's a lot like Devilman Crybaby. So I guess it's in the genre of like things that are like Devilman, where like boy goes to school but then gets like terrifying like monstrous power. So
Mhm.
I guess like Guyver is kind of like that too. There's a lot of things that are like this.
Yes.
And Gleipnir is of that genre, where it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I have these terrifying powers and I'm a confused teen, and looks like other people at school also have these powers and I have to fight them after school, and.
Well, like that's just the weird thing about it. It generally doesn't matter to society that it's going on because, like, even that, as much as a spoiler bomb as this is, there's an alien presence like, playing this game uh, is not forced. It's just if you find something and return it to me, this is what you get in return. It's not. I guess he would rather you keep his like existence on the down low and not really talk about it, but as long as you don't come across any of those coins, you should, for the most part, be fine and like not forced into this death game. But like at the same time, other people are becoming monstrously powerful, and that could affect society.
I think my problem with the show so far is that its gender politics are a bit on the icky side. I've only seen the first 3 episodes, so it could be that this improves, but
No.
there is not a
I-
single female character that isn't horrible. And the way it's framed is that they're horrible because they're acting like men. And yeah, I'm not really on board with that. So I don't know if that gets improved or if I'm thinking too seriously about this.
I read a review of the manga and sounds like it's the opposite of improved. It gets worse as they
Oh,
introduce
no.
more and more female antagonists. Yeah, I don't know. I wish there was like a better version of the show because I think it has like one
Yeah.
neat idea that
Yes.
dude
So-
transforms into like a suit with a zipper in the back, and then someone can climb into him,
Mm-hmm.
you know, which is just like heavy sexual metaphors going on here. Like
Yeah.
lady
I'm
friend
a really
climbs into
stunted
his
head
back
when it
and
comes
takes
to picking up
control.
on that stuff, and I picked up on this right away.
Oh yeah.
Not subtle. But yeah, I'm right there with you where I was actually looking forward to this show the most because I thought the premise had a lot of potential that they could, you know, plumb into a lot of psychological concepts and stuff, but no, it's not that at all.
Well, I will say, oh, I'm reverbing. I have watched basically episode 4, where a lot of this new information is coming from. I think it just came out today.
Must
So
have came out today, yeah.
yeah, it came out
Yeah,
today.
I haven't seen it.
I will say that, like, while I did learn of a little bit of the story premise as to how this has all happened, by the end of the episode, I think near the beginning of it, they were kind of still playing with. Or no, that was 3. Okay, never mind. So at near the end of 4, the protagonist of the show, Shuichi, has kind of become is starting to become desensitized to a lot of what is going on. So it reminded me of almost like Parasite when the protagonist of that show was like succumbing to his change. Like
Yeah,
I think
that's another Devilman type thing, isn't it?
yeah.
Parasite.
So like I think it's getting ready to go that route, but I'm not exactly sure. But none of the stuff that it does rubs me in particular the wrong way. I mean, it's just, a story that I don't tend to fault anime for like the stuff that it does, even though a lot of people do. It's just, I don't personally mind. So like it'd be nice if it didn't have to do that, but I don't mind the fact that it does.
Yeah,
So
I don't know if I'm gonna continue on with this. What are y'all doing with this
I'm
one?
continuing for sure.
I don't know. Probably bail at episode 4. Probably.
I don't know. I'm still stuck on episode 1, so unless I hear something from someone else saying, "Oh, you got to
Well-
see this," I don't know if I'll
well,
continue on.
If you've already seen episode 1, you may as well see the fight scene in episode 2 because that fight scene looks real good.
Yeah, we should probably point out that the animation's really nice. At least the fight scenes and whatnot, which is good for an action anime. Very
Yeah,
detailed. The background art is really pretty. Is that they put a lot of effort into the backgrounds. So it's nice to look at, kind of.
I will say that it's definitely one of the shows that caught my eye, just as far as even character design goes. They definitely don't pull any of the shortcuts where, we give people a tire and it never moves. It's just like a static color with shading. There's a lot of, moving parts to everything here. So it's sheer quality alone is what kind of drew me in. And as I said, nothing that it does is something that rubs me in particular the wrong way, but not that my tastes are universal to most, even the crowd here.
Yeah, I think that it literally caught my eye is the only reason I watched more than like 10 seconds of it. Because it makes a really good, visually good first impression. The character designer is like very experienced and prolific. He did Durarara and like a million other things.
Oh.
So yeah, episode 1 and 2 look really good. And boy turns into a weird monster with a zipper on the back, and someone climbs into him, and that's about the two things that the show has going for it.
I thought the character design looked really familiar. Wow, that guy's done a lot of things. Okay, let's go ahead and oh, that's what it was. Battle Programmer, should I say? I recently watched that again.
I know this character designer from Noain. Like that's the thing that I always think of, even though that's the thing that looks the weirdest. But
the next title we have here is something I have no idea about. Oh, I'm on the wrong page. Click. What is this? Yesterday Sing or Yesterday Wo Yutate?
Yeah, which I guess translates to something like "sing about yesterday."
Sing yesterday for me.
Yeah. Okay, there's the official.
What is this?
This is a passion project from a director at what is that studio? Dolga Kolbo. So from a studio that has gained a reputation lately for a lot of like moe loli things. Here comes something that is not one of those. It's a manga that this guy really likes, and it began in the 90s. So it is a drama about like high schoolers and like recent graduates or something. You know, it's a coming of age story, like people just getting out of school, or you know, they're trying to figure out what they want to do, and there's some relationship stuff. I like that it's very gung ho about what it's doing. You know, it really loves the material, which I don't love it that much. But the show loves it, and like its enthusiasm is very infectious. Like the animation is incredibly good. The character designs look awesome. It tries to make the most out of what it's got. I think the problem with it is that the material is kind of tropey and outdated. So as I watch it, when I see things in this show, I start thinking about other shows that also had these things. I'm like, okay, there's a widowed love interest. There is a spunky rival who, in episode 2, declares rivalry with. It's like, I'm going to be your rival, and we're going to fight for the love of, you know, Mr. McBoring main character protagonist man.
Is the manga still ongoing?
No, it ended a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But it ran a long time.
Yeah, over 10 years.
Wow.
That's actually something that I wasn't sure if this was just going to be a small snippet of that entire, you know, length, because I don't know how frequently it released in those 10 years. You know, how consistent the story was releasing, or if there's a lot of pauses between.
If I recall correctly, it's something like 11 volumes.
Okay, because like I was saying, they're kind of managing to pack in a lot of content, even though the like plot is a bit melodramatic. Like I'm not like bored with anything that it's doing, even though there's not necessarily a lot happening. And I can't tell if they're condensing down a lot of the story to try to tell it all quickly, or if this is just going to be a small something just to kind of try to bring you in to read, you know, the whole story overall. Like I just can't tell because I don't know anything about the origin story. Well, the source material.
I think one of the interesting ways that the source material shows its age is that there are scenes where characters just can't connect with one another, like technologically. Because like, oh, she's waiting there for me, but you know, I can't give her a call. Instead, I have to like run around the city and try to find her. Because you know, what is a cell phone?
I actually don't think those.
Had that problem too.
I don't. Yeah, because I think that might not have been around at the time. I don't know if it's at a time where cell phones exist, unless you saw characters with them. But
Well,
I feel like in the late 90s there would have been flip phones, maybe.
They
Like,
were still really expensive at that time.
yeah, it took
Okay.
a while for it to integrate into things. Like I don't even remember my folks having cell phones until probably really close to the year 2000.
Yeah. I remember around that time, like maybe pagers were becoming a thing at my high school.
So,
Yeah, like it was clearly after pagers. Like pagers were the main way to communicate for a while, and then like cell phones eventually were able to take off.
so what is this show? Is it just a romance, or is it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a coming of age romance drama thing.
Oh, okay.
I've only
But,
seen
like-
2 episodes, but it's cute. It's not something I'd rave about necessarily, but
I think one.
it's good
Go
at
ahead.
what it does.
I think one of the things like it does kind of well is shows like what happens to people who are stuck. There are depictions of characters who, wait on people who will never be there. There are depictions of characters worried that they didn't get far enough in life with their current job that they're doing. And it just finds a way to relate to a lot of people, in my opinion. About the only thing I don't like about it is there's a damn character who walks around with like a paper clip as an earring. That's the most infuriating thing to me about this whole damn show.
Yeah, I don't know much about ear piercings. Is that just something you do to like maintain the pierce,
That's like what I
or
would guess.
or is
but I
that
don't know.
actually his fashion is to have a paperclip in
I'm
his ear,
thinking that's supposed to be his fashion due
or
to like
a clothespin, I should say. Isn't that what it is?
yeah,
That
it's
was
like a safety pin.
popular a while ago. I
Okay.
remember people doing the paper clips and clothespins and all sorts of stupid stuff.
Hmm.
But it's probably one of those artifacts from the era that the manga was written.
Yeah, they should know it's duct tape these days.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say again that like I don't love the story, but I like that the anime loves the story. Like it is very apparent that it's trying to make the best possible like best realization of this manga like into anime as possible. So and it comes from a studio that has good animators. So it's a really good looking show, and the first episode is very impressive. It's like, oh yeah, KyoAni is gone, but this studio is trying to do something almost at a KyoAni level of quality, at least in the premiere, and
For
like
once
that's
we're
pretty
not talk-
impressive.
For once, we're not talking about questionable morality of the characters.
So
That might come later. Who knows?
I just
Make
started-
no,
No,
declarations
not
now.
with not with this series. No.
No, not in the way you mean. But
So I was looking at the synopsis and I just realized that they're not in high school.
nope.
So this
Nope.
is not a romance in high school. This
Oh,
is-
there are some characters who are near that age, but not all characters. Most characters are not.
Yeah, there's a younger character, a younger boy that's going to some sort of art school, maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And there's also another character who's somewhat younger who didn't complete school.
Yeah,
So I don't know technically at what age she technically is, but
Haru, right? The one with the crow.
Mhm. Yeah, I really want to see what this show's doing because I don't get a lot of shows like this out of anime a lot, and I think to me it's because they're so attentive to, as I said, everything like with Gleipnir, how it caught my eye with just character design and the animations of subtlety that you normally don't want to focus on when you're, say, like watching an action show because you want there to be action. These shows don't come out frequently, and I always do typically enjoy when they're done well, and this one so far is.
All right. So, are you guys recommending this should be a watch, or at least check out the first episodes, or?
check out the first episode. That's really impressive.
Yeah,
Like whether the story
Um,
grabs you or not, then I don't know.
I'd say it's probably not your best gateway show to try to entice, newly anime fans unless you're trying to really entice someone really mature, not like a younger teenage crowd. But
Well, I don't know. I think if you got someone who is at the age of all these characters that are
Mhm.
trying to figure out what they want to do in
Yeah,
life, maybe it's gonna like
absolutely.
grab them.
Absolutely, but I was just meaning like I think if you're a longtime anime fan, it might even just be worth checking out just to kind of see.
All right. Let's go to the next title, which has a really easy title for me.
Mm-hmm.
Tamayomi. Oh my
Yay.
god, I got it. Oh. I'm gonna watch this show just because I can say it so easily.
Just don't watch episode 4, whatever you do.
But
Oh my god!
just,
You took words out of my mouth.
just looking at this,
I'm sorry, I didn't know if you were gonna go there or not.
just looking at this though, it reminds me of our old saying, back in the day where there's always.
Is it about
in
baseball?
it. Yeah, it's about
Yes.
baseball.
It is, but I'll let Vinny take this because I don't want to steal any more of his thunder.
Okay, I'll start. pretty much a sucker for girls' baseball anime. I watch pretty much anything that has to do with it. So I had a somewhat of a high expectation, but the animation just let me down totally. Let's put it this way. It's another show in this spring, the Hachinante Sore wa Naide show. Was it the eighth son? Are you kidding me? That one's quality is strictly average. It's not great, it's not terrible, it's somewhere in between. But for some reason, Tamayomi just set the bar way too low to the point where I'm starting to remind myself of getting flashback of a disastrous animation from a couple years ago. Was it Marzen, was it? The one that
Oh,
got canned after episode 10?
I think they just put it on like a big pause until they wanted to go back to it could go back to it.
I just don't see that Alba want to resuscitate that series, but that was the vibe I was getting by the episode 4. I mean, episode 1 started out just okay, and I knew that from the get-go that this is not one of those done by high-profile animation studios or anybody who has much experience dealing with any action scene, because character sizes all over the places, the movements are pretty awkward,
Mm.
and I gave a passing grade in the first episode simply because I just like the girl space anime. Then things started to kind of drip south, and by episode 4 you could see that this is just heading into one of the worst animated series in a long time. I, if you borrow the term from the Shirobako, it's that the whole, whole jelly, pudding-looking thing happening. Because you could just see one scene where everybody looks semi-okay, then just cut to the next scene, everybody looks nothing like the characters from the opening or ending sequences. And it's just such a pity, because, yes, the storyline is pretty generic. There's two childhood friends who makes a promise to play baseball together. They finally reunited on high school, where they decided to restart the team because the team was suspended for the fighting that broke out in the season before. So they're trying to rebuild a team, which is a pretty much a standard fare for the girls' baseball anime. It always starts with assembling the team. You get all this a bunch of different characters with different quirks, and they start building up the team where they lose some, they win some, they try to unify, then they get better, and mount the challenges. That standard affair. So storyline isn't really nothing to talk about. Just that I just simply like those type of anime, and I like the opening and the ending music, like enough, but I mean, if it
I
wasn't for if it wasn't for the fact that I like that series, this type of series so much, I would have dropped it in a heartbeat and walked away from it, and that's all I can say.
Yeah, honestly, I did enjoy the story because essentially what you had was, I think it starts with like two girls playing like wiffle ball, and one of them could like throw this crazy curve on this wiffle ball. And the person catching it said like, "Oh man, if you could learn to do that like with the baseball, it would be like golden." So she goes on to join a baseball team and does just that. Now the two had moved away at the time, but she perfects this like crazy butt curveball in like what, middle school to junior high, and she unfortunately joined a team where every other member only wanted to be there because it looked good on their like future resumes. They cared not one bit for baseball, and the catcher was like so horrible at it she could never catch this crazy curveball, and asked the character to never throw it because the person who didn't care to be good at sports said it made her look bad. So the protagonist of the series kind of ended up getting scarred by like the fact that her curveball like hurt a team dynamic, and she wanted to seal it away, and she largely does. But then, like, kind of like as Tripley Vinny said, when they kind of go to this one school that was known to have a decent team, they find that the team was a disarray. It was mostly disbanded. They had some kind of a falling out, and the two childhood friend characters meet again, and they're kind of rebuilding a team. there's this character who like is a girl's baseball otaku. She has like these hunches and knows a lot about all these characters. It did have a lot going for it at the story that I could just get into, and I really wanted to continue with it. But as Vinny and I were kind of saying, if you really want to see like a train wreck happen, just as an anime fan, kind of check out episode 1. And if it's not your interest, or maybe try to carry with it, but definitely check out episode 4, knowing you're going to be witnessing a train wreck, because it's kind of like one of those things that help build your perspective on things that happen. Like, I don't know what that spells for the rest of the series at this time. I don't know if this is going to be
The new
consistent till the end or not. I really hope it's not, but it's kind of hard to say when in episode 4 you're already getting hit with this. And I don't know, like, who was... I just wanted to see, like, the studio, if we had any, like, stats on the studio.
Studio 8 Cat. I never heard of them before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta wonder if there's just like the normal garbageness of the anime industry, or is this the coronavirus effect, like hitting a show in a way that...
It was really hard to say because so many shows got pushed back. It could have absolutely been that. There was one show that I might talk about later that me and somebody were looking forward to, and it just got postponed now. Like, 2 episodes came out, and it's just the rest won't come out till later.
Yeah.
Period.
Did you say was it that guy with like the big credit card that can like
Yeah.
buy his way? And yeah,
Yep.
that shit was dumb, but yeah.
It's dumb, but it's like a comedy dumb, so it's good. It's kind of cool. I'll admit I wasn't sold in episode 1, but by the time 2 happened, I was like, okay.
Huh.
Because
Okay.
he kind of has this like James Bond thing going on. He's got these like glasses that can, use the internet, look up people's credit card transactions, monitor their heart rate. It's like feeding him like spy level knowledge, and he's this rich guy that's like doing crazy shit. I liked it.
I only watched up to episode 2 of Tamayomi because the animation was just so bad. Because I also have a soft spot for sports anime, even though I absolutely hate sports in real life. Don't ask me why I like them in anime. So I was hoping for just a sweet little baseball story. And the first episode was okay. It was pretty boring, but you know what? Give it a pass. Give it episode 2. And then the animation mistakes came in, and I was bored to tears, so I just dropped it.
One of the interesting things on here says that the first episode pre-aired on March 8th. So, like, even though I just, watched episode 1 somewhat recently, apparently episode 1 was done as of March 8th. And
So
yeah.
even in good days, it would have been a strictly average quality at best.
And that's how the first episode was, is it was pretty average.
Mhm.
Nothing too glaringly horrible, nothing too great.
Just watch episode 4 and cringe for me, please.
Oh, okay, I'll do that.
I'm already downloading it.
Is it as bad as that rugby anime?
Worse.
Worse?
Oh, worse.
Yeah,
I think
it's-
worse.
I was wondering,
No.
It's just so bad.
Nick, how would you compare it to the I'm Going to Be Twin Tails?
I probably worse. Like, dude, this thing is the last thing that it
Wow.
made me remember, and I didn't even go back to finish it, was like that anime in which people were like trying to save manga because like the manga were like getting attacked by things, and like the comedy was stupid, the animation was terrible, the shading was bad. I forget the name of it because I never finished it, but
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
yeah.
Where the ending had all of them in swimsuits or
I
something like that.
can't say I remember the ending, but I just thought the premise was kind of cool. We're trying to save stuff that's like nostalgic and otaku-ish to us, and it's disappearing from the world.
All right. So everyone check out episode 4. If not anything
I'll do
else.
that after the hangout.
This is on Funimation. And
If this doesn't get canned, I'll probably watch through the whole series and do the whole post-autopsy at the end of the season, just to tell you if it got any worse.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on to the next title. Appare Ranman.
Out of order. Okay. So, I think a lot of us are watching this one, yeah.
Oops, I forgot to use the title card.
Oh,
I
maybe
watched
not. Just me and
the
Jessica.
first episode.
Mhm.
I've only seen one episode.
I saw the
Gotcha.
first episode, I think yesterday, and that's all I got to.
I just noticed a lot of color and not like a lot of the drop color. um, what? Okay, I don't know. Sometimes I look at that to notice if I'm breaking up or not. But
I can hear you.
gotcha. Appare Ranman was like a show that I didn't know I would enjoy. It's from PA Works, and it has like a quirky protagonist, like character design. The like the weird mouth thing going on with the Appare Sorano. I can see that kind of rubbing people a lot of the wrong way. But like one of the interesting things about this show is it's set in I'm not that good with my like centuries, but like what 18th century, America or so, and 19th. Because yes, steam technology. Yeah, because steam technology was kind of big in Japan, but America was already doing gas engines. I kind of forgot that very recent fact I should know about. But Appare is a kind of this, socially like as much as I don't want to say like autistic, but just there's something weird about this dude where he's a genius but socially inept. There's a lot of things that he doesn't get, and he has the sole pursuit of like STEM field technology stuff. So he was able to cobble together a bunch of parts that they gotten through trade from like America to build his own steam engine boat, and violating like a bunch of social norms about people because he's wholeheartedly set on his scientific pursuit. He, let's just say, long story short, ends up leaving Japan. It was his plan to, but it didn't happen the way he planned to. And he eventually gets to America, in which they kind of land in, did they say it was LA, California, I believe? And they find that this American race was about to take place. And immediately he's engulfed in that. And it's literally about his pursuit of, again, perfecting his craft and just tinkering and building with stuff. And it's interesting how he rubs off on the characters that he kind of interacts with, because as was really kind of prominent this season, I would say, as Jessica kind of said, like gender roles earlier, if you watched Arte at all, it's there's a lot of the mentality of what women generally cannot do, and he'll find characters who will think that they're kind of falling out of favor. Like one of his the co protagonist of the show is Kosame Ishiki, who is like the samurai who this is like the age of guns. So he kind of knows that the age of the samurai is over, yet that's what his whole family was built around. So now he kind of even ends up over in America with Appare, further kind of realizing how out of tune with society samurais are even becoming. And all along the way, Appare just kind of he only operates on this premise of what people perceive to be impossible and what actually are impossible are two separate things. And like, why let someone else limit your potential? That's just something that doesn't make sense to him. And you could see why with what his character is supposed to be, but I just kind of like a lot of how he gets along with other characters, how they draw some inspiration from him. This crazy cool story that might eventually become this like multi-segment race across America to be the first to the other side. And I just think it has hopefully a lot going for it. It is a little bit quirky. The characters are rather flashy, but I have been impressed with what I've seen so far, and I definitely want to continue with it.
I always enjoy anime set in the Meiji Restoration / Revolution period because it was a very turbulent time, so there's a lot of drama. But I also really like anime set in America because of the unintentional hilariosity of just some of the gaffes and the mistakes that they make, or the way that they view American culture. I find just hilarious. So I'm on board with this one. The guy's little clown face paint really drives me nuts, but I'm gonna hang in there and soldier on. But I think I'm gonna wait to watch it until it starts serialization back up again, because I'm not gonna remember the details since it's been pushed to the fall season now or summer. Do you know, Nick?
I haven't checked here. Hang on. Carry on with topics while I look into something.
Oh, I didn't really have much to say other than that because I've only seen the first episode.
I'll have to do it this way.
I've only seen the first episode. It didn't really grab me, and there were some things that I don't know. I you know, it's obviously a comedy, but I never really laughed, and I was just more like bemused by it. Like, I was just kind of puzzled by it. Like the the main character, I suppose, has like a very, very loud character design that's colorful, but he is not a colorful personality, I guess. Or
No.
he's like very subdued, and he's just lost in his engineering world. Why is he dressed like that? I don't know.
That's a good point, actually. I didn't
Like,
think of it that way. It's the character design and personality do not mix.
So there's something about the style of it that doesn't connect with me. So I don't know.
Yeah, I can't tell when it was pushed back to. It's not even displaying when it's going to start up. And
Oh.
I think that because Redline exists, like, I've been spoiled by any other show that tries to do like wacky anime vehicular racing. Because then I just see it as like, this is Redline, but like 1/8 as good as that.
Red Line
So,
is
like,
a once in a decade type anime thing. So this definitely is influenced by Red Line, for sure. But I don't know. I'm willing to have fun with it.
Okay.
one of the things that kind of maybe draws me into this is like how I kind of know ahead of time, just because we've seen how episode 1 kicks off events before they go into the backstory of how they got there. Was he's going to like do this race with a steam powered car, and like everybody else is using gas. So like to me, I just kind of want there to be like, I want that to be a little bit of the premise of like the meat and potatoes of the race, but I'm not sure how much it's going to be. Because I have this steam powered ship, here's what I can do instead of like, gas and having to refill and blah blah. One of the things that I can kind of laugh about is how modern it is. In the most recent episode, even though it's going to be delayed, the character was seen kind of making basically the Segway, like before the Segway existed.
Yeah.
And just kind of stuff like that. It's like, that's part of the comedy to me. So just seeing how they're borrowing from super modern concepts and bringing it back to like Appare's creation is part of the charm of the series to me.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
I can.
Yeah, sorry, I had muted my mic, but we're being distracted by images of really bad animation from shows back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh.
So, let's see here. We'll go to the next title that Nick wanted to talk about.
Just a quick mention. Nothing like
which is
super serious.
Shadowverse, right?
So, as we've all kind of known, over the years, Cygames has had a lot of involvement in at least funding anime based on basically app games. So if there was like an app game that ever existed and it became an animation, Cygames probably has a credit in it somehow, some way. It's
Isn't
kind of
that-
cool.
Isn't that like Princess thing also a Cygames thing?
Yep, they have a
I-
credit there.
I forget the full name, but I remember it
Yeah,
had
the
Princess in the name.
Drive, Reconnect, blah de blah, something or another.
Yeah.
So we were kind of blown away years ago, I want to at least assume, when they took that one property that was their Rage of Bahamut, and they did this like really cool 2-season, like fanatical kind of adaptation of that game. And then, I've gone on to see a lot of basically the spirit of the app games come out in a lot of their properties. And I actually did play Shadowverse just a little bit. So essentially what it is it's a new age card game that's played on the phone. So since it's built for the phone, it has a lot of elements that a game can happen fairly on a phone, but you just like can't trust a person to honestly convey like all of what's happening. But it's like a really cool game. There's like 7 classes of people to choose from, and or decks to build, blah, blah, blah. That's not important. I really wanted to know what they were going to do as an anime, because I played the main story. When you start up the game, there's like a campaign that you play for each of the 7. If this was Magic the Gathering, think of it as colors. But it's essentially the story of characters like this god kind of coming to this world, and somebody invited this god to basically reset the world. So it's the god's goal to bring everyone to serenity, which is, put them to sleep in a blissful dream as I destroy and recreate the world, is like the premise of the story that you have to play. And one of the things that I never liked is whenever you were playing for the character, like, there's like this like vampire who's like really muscular. There's like a forest person who has bow and arrows. And like whenever conflict was about to arise, they're seen as like powering up and drawing their weapons. And then that's where the player jumps in with the card game. And you actually have to, you're playing the card game and you're throwing out your cards that you have. And then if you beat the mission, you can kind of progress the story. So I was really looking forward to seeing maybe that whole story done in a way where they're actually animating the combat and it's not their card game as a step in. And what I was greeted by was basically this Yu-Gi-Oh story of it's set in high school. Cell phones are all the rage. All the kids are playing Shadowverse. You make deals with if you could beat the person, stuff happens. And oh yeah, get cell phones to play Shadowverse because it doesn't exist as a physical card game.
So it's basically a tutorial for the app game.
It actually isn't
as
even
a
a very
anime.
good tutorial.
It's a commercial for the app game.
It is a commercial. But the thing that infuriates me one step further is, okay, so you're trying to hook a bunch of these kids to play the game, and then they're going to be met with this whole mechanic that I just explained to you all. Like, it's such a clash that I like that it's a plug, but I almost wish that they just animated the damn story that they wanted to make into a campaign instead of making it the next Yu-Gi-Oh!
Does anyone ever say, I'm going to send you to the Shadowverse?
No.
Damn.
Yeah. There is this one kid that puts up like cell phones for stake, though. If I beat you in this app game, I get your whole cell phone. That's about the worst of it so far.
Wow. Are you going to keep going with it or no?
I do want to keep going with it just because one of the things that I think they've done a really good job of is, aside from the fact that selling you need a cell phone to play this game, I wondered how they were going to do it, because as I've said, there's basically, if you think of it as Magic the Gathering, if you've ever played it, there's like 7 colors in this game, and they each represent different decks, or different types of deck that you could build. And I was wondering how they're going to do it. Apparently, the main character has settled on one type and is proceeding full ham with that, never trying out any other types. And there's a lot of stuff that I've personally played, so I know the mechanics going in. And one of the things that I love about stuff like this is, as someone who used to play physical-based card games, there's challenges with toting around your whole collection when you want to play in another state or something. Like, you literally have to haul all your supply. Like, even if you're just carrying one deck, you have to have that present with you. The convenience of the app game is you can play it wherever your phone is charged. And you could even play friends who are like states away. And they're not really focusing on that aspect. They're pretty much playing it sheer, like, I can see the person in front of me locally. So in my opinion, like, they're not even promoting it the best way they could. But one of the things that they've done well is just start from a beginner's perspective. So I've noticed a lot of the decks that they've been playing have had basically a lot of, say, common cards with a few uncommon and only one super rare card that like precedes. And that's like what you're going to have when you start playing it. It's just not the person who's like paid to win and has like deckfuls of ultra rare stuff. But, you know, we're not going to talk about people like that. Like being present early on, meeting our protagonist. And it's kind of funny because they've also sold it as people who get upset and quit playing the game after they lose are bad. And you've got to have fun while playing, even though the protagonist has seen only so far to be winning, instead of ever being happy about an actual loss.
Wow. So
So
it's
like, I want
really
to analyze it on that level, and that's why I want to watch it. And I also like, because I love parts of Shadowverse. Although I don't play it anymore, I just like how if you reinstall the app and you log into your account, all your stuff is there. You know, you can play anywhere, and against anyone at any time, kind of a thing. And since it's Psy Games and it's not like a Yu-Gi-Oh type, you know, kid story. There are times when like movies are going to be in theaters. If you're playing the game around that time, if Psy Games has any like crack at getting their license, like the last one that I seen them do when I was playing was the movie Machia. So if you were playing Shadowverse around that time, you could actually have your deck be like the card backs be sleeved in that Machia key visual. So it's very related to anime. They even did a Fate crossover thing when the Fate Part 1 or 2 was in theaters. They just like took a copy of a card and turned it into a Fate character, and you can include that in certain decks, like not in like an active play format, but like it's just obviously like they pasted the art of one character over a card that already existed, called it, you know, the character from Fate Stay Night, and it's just in Shadowverse now. But so like stuff like that's not done super well, but like I said, I at least enjoy stuff like Shadowverse existing, and I want to see where they're going to go with the story since they've chosen to tell it this way. But I'm by no means recommending anyone check this thing out.
All right.
And that's my spiel on that.
Let's go ahead and move on to the next title then.
How about the one title that Tank should be watching?
I already got this title here though. Kakushigoto,
That's the title you should be watching.
and I am watching it. Zetsubo.
Take it away, Tank.
Zetsubo. That's all I could think of, Zetsubo Sensei. When did that show come out?
The early Ozies, wasn't it?
Yeah, like maybe 2006, something like that. I don't remember. But this, it's an interesting show and it's pretty fun. It's heavily slapstick comedy, and it's about this young father who's trying to hide his greatest secret from his daughter, which is the fact that he's a manga artist, but his manga is questionable at the least. With this, I don't know, it's this character's like wears these tights and does some really strange things, but they don't really get deep and down to what his manga is about. It's all about keeping this secret away from his daughter, and it's so far been having this back and forth between her being young and her being, I think, in her later teens, maybe like 18 or something like that. I can't remember what they really said her age. When she's going to the house and she finds out the secret, but it's been just really fun how he will walk out dressed up like a businessman with his daughter, send her to school. He'll go out, change, and even make a funny reference calling him Clark Kent. You should be changing in your phone booth. As he goes out and gets dressed in more relaxed clothing so that he can work on his manga. And he's got such a daughter complex, and it shows heavily, and it just plays into the antics that are always going on. So he wants his daughter to always see the best in him, but he always also takes things out of context. And also, I don't know if they're doing it on purpose or maybe it's just. It also seems like she's not too bright, but I think they do mention that later on. I think it's like she probably knew something, but just decided not to think about it or something like that.
Well, she was the only one of the girls that figured out that they were in a Starbucks, so she can't be that dim.
Yeah, that's true. But it's just been so much fun, and like I said, if you've seen Zetsubo Sensei, you'll see a lot of these characters have very similar looks. And the only problem I have with the show is that sometimes everything's going by so fast that you miss a lot of the references they may mention, like how the puns work or how certain things are being taken into account within the story. And I don't know if that's just because of Funimation and their subtitling, because sometimes I think you mentioned that, right? It was stacking in really weird ways.
Yes.
It's not easy to read. So I've just seen one episode, and I wasn't sure if I would continue on because is the whole show just the same joke of I can't let my daughter find out I'm a manga artist?
I would say no.
No?
About
Okay,
that.
because for me, I'm thinking that's not going to carry me through 12 episodes.
There's a lot of play with his manga assistants, and there's a lot of skits going on around that. Like even they have these rehearsals. Like, what if she ever visits his manga studio? So they do these drills and stuff that just go with everyone pretending to be an actual business, and hide all the manga stuff. And
I would say
yeah,
there's 3 points to its comedy and one non-comedic point about it that makes this show a pretty good blend. So as Tank was kind of saying, half the jokes are about like him being afraid of telling his daughter what he does. And yes, there's a lot of manga specific jokes too, like even amongst creators, they spend a lot of time like him as an artist and how he has something out there in production and how he has friends and just the lifestyle of artist kind of like a humor fork. So it's out that's a little abstracted from just hiding from his daughter. And because the mother is kind of missing, we aren't actually told what happened to her. We can assume something bad happens, but who knows? There's a lot of like almost rom-com too, because like there's a lot of female characters who will think that he's hitting on them as a single dad with a kid, and they're like kind of like oh he's hitting on me. I'm going to end up with this person, and like how their expectations are going forward. So that's probably the most charming of its comedy because it's like a rom-com angle. But then it also has that dramatic moment, like when the character is going through like a box or is referencing her mother. There is this point of like happy sadness that it's able to achieve, and I've actually mostly noticed that in like say episode 3. It was a really funny show with those comedic points that I talked about, but it ends in like a really kind of nice way. And probably the fifth reason I'm watching this show is it totally seems like what Araragi would be like as a father, because he's obviously the voice actor. So like that's something that I just, and it's like such a Shaft kind of like poised to show. Like it
Yes.
just looks like Shaft made it, even though they didn't.
Okay, I'll keep going then.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like the Shaft vibe is so heavy, but then I look up all the directors and designers of the show, and they don't have any Shaft connections except for the original creator.
And probably the
who
voice
did.
actor of Araragi.
Yeah, but he's in a lot of stuff when it
I
comes
know,
down to
I
it.
know.
I think
He was
my only
probably also
question,
Zetsubo Sensei.
I think my only question with this series is where's the dog? If you watch the opening and the ending, you see the puppy on the opening and the fully grown lab in the car, but you never see that dog in the series, actual episodes.
I'll have to keep an eye out for it in the openings then.
Yeah, I
'Cause
can't say I've paid particular attention, but that could easily come much later. Like if it's supposed to be when she's older.
Mm. Yeah, because in the opening sequence, when they're painting the house, there's a puppy running around briefly, and at the ending, at the very end of the ending,
did he cut out?
Yeah, I can't hear him.
I see the boxer on his thing like he's talking.
I see it too,
I
but I
hear
don't
it.
hear him.
Mhm.
Hey, Vinny, you might have to quit and rejoin. Something weird is going on.
Oh, wait, that was Sean that quit.
That's Albert.
He took his own advice.
Hello?
Hey.
Vinny, you there? You there, buddy? I'm sorry, on my video feed looks like I'm actually looking at it. I'm trying to talk to him.
There he goes.
I didn't even notice the dog. I think I skipped the opening ending. I'm gonna have to watch it now.
Yeah, I honestly don't know a dog, but I,
Welcome back.
Okay, that was
We can
thank
Yeah, I
you.
can
That was
hear you.
weird. That was weird. I got dropped, I guess.
Yeah, Discord's been weird ever since the lockdown started, because I guess everyone's using it for everything now.
Everyone should be using Zoom. Gosh.
Thank God my work doesn't use a video conferencing. Ugh.
Oh, my work uses Zoom.
Oh
It's
no,
Oh
Yeah.
no.
dude, it's been like outlawed from governments because of how bad that they've been with their technique of video
Security.
streaming.
I work for a hospital, so it involves PHI. They probably should not be using Zoom.
Mm.
Yep.
I mean, I used to use Zoom for work like years ago.
Like only
So
people
it's
have
like-
heard about them since
Yeah,
they
it's just
started.
like-
I didn't even know they existed years ago.
Yeah, it was like this business-to-business teleconferencing app. I'm
Mhm.
like, why are all the kids using Zoom right now? That seems like the most insane thing.
Yeah.
Like, of all video conferencing apps to adopt, it's like, that's the one that blows up? Why? Whatever, though.
Must be the advertisement. I remember hearing this Zoom video conference advertisement on radio station for months.
I've never heard of
Teams
them
is what
before.
we use at work.
Like, yeah. What do you use?
Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, Teams is common. Oh,
I've used like GoToMeeting before.
Oh yeah, I've used that one too.
Yeah, so imagine if like GoToMeeting like became the thing that blew up among Generation Z and whatnot.
I think my work uses Cisco WebEx.
Let's all go back to Google Hangouts. It's still out.
Hmm.
we could have done this by Hangouts. I've said that before.
I think that's still around, right?
Oh yeah, they're still around.
Okay, next title.
Yeah.
Wait, what about the dog though? You just forget about the dog like the show?
Oh, no, I'm just wondering when there's gonna be an episode about them getting a dog, because clearly dogs mentioned in both opening and ending, so there's gotta be dogs popping up somewhere. That's all.
Okay. Let's see what else is there. I guess we'll talk about this show. I don't know. All I know is that it was really popular
Which one are we
in
talking about?
manga.
Probably the one that I listed,
Yeah.
just
Oh.
because.
Kami no To.
Kami no
Tower of
To,
God.
Tower of God.
Tower
I,
of God.
I always saw this as, in the manga advertisements or recommendations. You should.
Webtoon, I would say, because it is a webtoon.
I'm just saying, when I'm reading manga and stuff, this is always recommended. And
So this one's really odd.
It's a Korean manga, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, Webtoon is like a Korean platform, and while this one was probably made in Korea, it is expanded beyond just Korea. So like, there's users of, and any other nation can just post stuff. It doesn't just have to be from Korea. But that
Okay.
was what the platform blew up with the most, because it was like this colored, stylized manga style like place to release your stuff on.
But what about this title in particular?
This title is a Korean manga.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason why I say it's odd is it's the way that it's filmed, or the cinematography. The presentation is very odd, and I don't mean in a bad way, but one of the things that took me a couple episodes to realize is that there's no depth of field focus. Everything's in focus, even the stuff in the background. And so it gives this really kind of flat look to everything. But again, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just very distinctive. So I would say that the cinematography elevates the typical story, because the story, it's okay, it's serviceable, it's something we've all seen a million times before, but because it looks kind of neat, I'm curious about it and I want to see where it's going. I've seen 3 or 4 episodes of it.
I've only seen the first, and it started with the boy pulling the sword from the stone, and then suddenly battle royale, and then people with like high power sniper rifles, and I'm like, okay. I kind of jumped ship there, but what are they doing after that? Is it still that battle royale, or
I couldn't say because I didn't proceed with the story.
or
One of
did
the
they?
things.
Because it seemed like it's like they almost set it up like they're going to proceed to different floors of this tower, and there's going to be a different challenge on every floor. Like, do they stick with that, or what are they doing now?
So far, yes, although they're in teams now. So
Okay.
they're in teams of 3 going through the tower, and there's a challenge, and they're just going through it. Like I said, the story is not Shakespeare.
So, actually,
Shakespeare's battle royale.
I think
Yeah, now that I'd pay money for.
I think everything that's happening are trials to see if you're can be acknowledged to climb the tower.
Yeah,
Right?
that could be too. It's really unclear, and the sets are all surrealistic, where they talk about being inside, and then there's a sky out there, and one character goes, "Oh, so that's what the sky looks like." Is that this tower seems to be more metaphysical than grounded in any one place, especially because there are people of all different species here. Just no one's the same, really. So there's a lot of weird stuff going around in the background, which, piques my curiosity a little bit.
The reason why I kind of really wanted to bring this one up is because I didn't read a lot of webtoons in my time. There was like a time when I was still reading manga that I did get into the platform a little bit, and I picked up a few series here and there. But kind of shortly around that time, I fell off. And I just remember this one being highly rated and near the top of the rank when I was watching or reading stuff. And so it kind of comes out now, and it seems to have done the same thing. I'm kind of with Sean. I checked out episode 1 saying, oh, I know this thing was popular. I kind of want to see what it was about. And I couldn't really get into the content that episode 1 introduced. But I do know that it's still a rather popular show of this season, even though I'm not watching it. It has kind of a high rating, and it seems like it might be successful. It seems like it has even the stats to kind of like back it up quite a bit. I know they had someone working on its score. I know. I think the names aren't as foreign as some of the Korean products would be. But one of the interesting things is this was like a Japanese studio that picked up a Korean webtoon source. And kind of Sean near the beginning of this thing said he kind of likes to look for series that are like the start of something. So kind of like how Sword Art Online was unfortunately kind of the start of Isekai. Although we can't say that it's going to be the start of all like really good, highly rated manhwa stuff coming out. Other people have also been saying like if this thing's good, maybe Solo Leveling will get paid attention to into the anime side of things. But the only other thing that I've seen really hit Japan is like they might dub something from like China or even like Texas, because we've got that Ruby thing that I don't think has ever aired in Japan, but I know they dubbed it. But like this could be the start of that if this is successful, and that might be one of the more interesting things about it.
The start of what in particular? Just like Korean media?
Yeah, Korean media
adapted?
Becoming anime, or just
Okay.
other stuff that's like.
I think there are plenty of prior examples.
There
though.
have been, yeah. There was a really huge hype one a few years ago, Black God, that they marketed the hell out of, and it was supposed to be the next big thing, but it didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, and there's an anime like every once in a while that was adapted from a Korean thingy.
I always thought Sword Art Online became popular because it came after novel rather than it being an isekai. Because I remember,
Yeah, I don't really think of Sword Art as an isekai.
because I remember when it was first coming out, everyone was hyping it up because they read the light novel, and
Got you.
but
I mean, they're like tangentially related or, similar, but when I think of an isekai in the modern sense, I think of like, I love reading this manga slash this video game slash this, visual novel or, whatever. I'm consuming this otaku media. Now, if only I could go to a world where I can be in the otaku media and it all works just like my otaku media does, and I can use my otaku skills to like parse it.
I get it. It's one of the things that I think is a little bit interesting about the fact that it is from Webtoon, that platform, is how almost removed from manga it is. Like it is manga, but it's almost like more modern than anything Japan has been caring to replicate. Because like manga in Japan has still existed, continued to exist the same way. It comes out, in black and white in volumes and stuff. And the interesting thing about Webtoon is it's that platform that's like new age enough to acknowledge the advantages of digital distribution. So like since you're not using ink to actually print the stuff and putting it in stores, it's convenient enough to have color for everything. So like you're reading stories with color. You're although you have to view it through a digital lens, you don't get it physically in hand. It's just kind of interesting that they kind of brought about this innovation, whereas like Japan didn't.
all I can say is that Jessica, this is your fantasy show rather than an isekai.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I yes, you're correct, but I'm really not feeling anything clicking with me in terms of series this season, where there's nothing that I'm, oh, you absolutely have to watch this. It's just, yeah, I'm enjoying this. This is okay. This'll do, type of a thing. And so that's how I feel with Tower of God, is that if you watch the first episode and you were not digging the art style, if the premise did not click with you, then I don't think there's going to be anything coming down the line that will. I don't know. And I've seen the 4 or 5 or 3 or 4 episodes, and it's very methodical in the way that it's telling its story. It's interesting enough for me to keep watching, but I couldn't really even put my finger on why at this point. I think that if this came out during a season where there were more solid series, I would have dropped it already. But because we're in such a meh season, I'm starving for fantasy, damn it, and I'm gonna watch this.
I'll say this: I cheated. Right after finishing episode 3, I went and got on Webtoons and decided to read the whole first season.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started the second season, and then I'm like, okay, this is garbage.
Oh no! No!
I quit reading, even though there's like a whole nother maybe 200 200 chapters I could read. But
Oh my gosh, really?
yeah,
Oh.
so like the whole first arc, the first season seems okay. I could see why people would want to watch it and want to read it, but there's just so much better stuff out there.
Oh yeah,
So
definitely. Well, I figured Nick is gonna go through Shadowverse or whatever. I can watch this one for the team.
I think I'm taking more of the bullet there.
Yeah.
okay.
Tower of God is intriguing. Like it intrigued me because like the character designs looked weird and kind of sketchy. And then when I started watching the show, it has no basis of it has no like foundation of like earthly reality, right? It's just like we're in this abstract tower. What is this place? Is it purgatory? I don't know. And that's kind of intriguing too. But what I saw was not that impressive. And I think like if Ikuhara or like anybody from Shaft, it's just like there was the storyboarding needed more spice. Like it was so plainly presented that I feel like something with a premise that is this abstract needs to have some sort of visual poetry to it, and this didn't have that. So I just started thinking about like how much more interesting the show could be if it was storyboarded by Ikuhara, if it was storyboarded by, I don't know, Akiyuki Shimbo, if it was storyboarded by well, the name escapes me, but like anyone that has like a more abstract and interesting style. But I don't know. The show doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. It's just not. It's not visually interesting enough to like support its abstract premise. And then the battle royale stuff kind of turned me off because I'm like, okay, this is very trendy and cheesy. It's like I could sort of stomach the boy pulling the sword from the stone and meeting the lady in the lake. But then as soon as like someone's wielding this like anti-material rifle and like shooting someone like in an open field, I'm like, okay, this is kind of stupid.
So,
Yes.
So this-
Yes, it is.
so this anime probably was just made for the fans of the web novel.
And also the whole like I've
Or
got to
not.
find my sister, and that's the beginning and end of my character motivation is like
Yeah,
Pretty
I really
flimsy.
like that.
Mhm.
I said web novel, I meant webtoon, but yeah. Okay, let's go to the next title, which is Art.
Ah.
I have no idea what this is. What is
Who
this?
else has seen this?
Vinny.
You okay?
Vinny.
So this one's kind of odd. It's a shoujo manga that's following a young girl in the Italian Renaissance who loves to draw and wants to be an artist. So it's your typical shoujo stuff where the obstacles are all extremely familiar, but I like it again for that kind of disconnect between the past and comparing it to contemporary Japan, because Arte, the character, bows all the freaking time, and that's the body language just does not work in the setting at all, and I find that hilarious. Also, I don't know if Arte is based on Artemisia Gillespie, I think it was, who was a very famous and influential female painter during the Renaissance. If so, this manga is going to get very, very dark, or anime is going to get very, very dark, because her life was not sunshine and rainbows the way Arte's is.
Oh
It's
no.
cute, it's shoujo, it's fluffy, it's in an interesting setting for anime, so I'm digging it.
Yeah, I actually picked it up as well. It definitely tries to play to the role of like the gender bias of the time.
Mhm.
So, like, if you're someone who gets just absolutely rubbed the wrong way, even though it's from the perspective it should be from, I would, say avoid it. But I did actually kind of like a lot of just generally the message it seems to be trying to promote. Because while Arte is like trying to maybe make a living for herself, which isn't typically done by women of the time, um, she just kind of has that expression where if you try to do something on your own, you're genuinely going to do an okay to decent job at it, even, if it's not the best at first. There's a lot of people who think that she wouldn't be able to do something, and then lo and behold, she's able to do it. And what I'm kind of looking forward to is to see if that causes any growth with just the characters of this series. We did kind of see this one moment where a character views her doing this stuff, and he has to like take care of his sisters because his dad's in a bad position to like provide dowries for them all. And like, although he waits on them hand and foot for the most part, he actually does give them the life advice at one point of, just try to do something for yourself for once and see if you enjoy doing that, like as a like if it enriches your life.
Mhm.
And that's the message that I'm hoping this series is going to stick more towards, other than like maybe being dark. But it's hard to say being this early off. But I just don't think it's going to go down a path that
I'm not I don't it does not feel like it's gonna go that way,
yeah.
but I've been wrong before.
Yeah, well,
So,
because like I don't know if you've seen the most recent episode, being
No,
4.
no, I'm 3.
Okay. I did watch 4, and while nothing negative, like super negative, happens there, she actually does have one of the first coming to terms with like two kind of things that are existing here. But I still don't think it's going to go down a bad route.
Yeah, it's the tone would not fit at all, I don't think, but
Mhm.
I kind of want them to confirm one way or the other so I can kind of be off high alert because I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop here and I really
It's.
don't
I
want it
think it's
to.
going to in an interesting way to you because like I like how they did it. Um. Oh, some questions are answered in 4, not obviously not all. But like because this one is such the almost profession of like say a female protagonist, one of the things that I immediately think of for whatever reason was probably like the Snow White with the red hair, just because that's like another character who had to do a lot for herself in this kind of shoujo-y story. So that's just the kind of stuff that I personally think of when I think of a series like this. And I enjoyed that, so I figured I'd give this a shot. And I've so far not been let down, but it's obviously not the end of the story as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so far it's following the manga pretty faithfully, so judging by that, it's not going to be very depressing anytime soon.
Oh,
We got a
that's
So
manga reader here.
yeah, so it's safe to say, at least for the season 1, there's not gonna be any tragedy, scale of that artist that you mentioned. Nothing like that.
very, very good.
You say that, but some things change.
No, 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 no. Let's not take a detour here. I don't think that they are capable of
Don't doubt my
making
hope.
that much changes.
Well, this will segue into the next title then, because of I don't even. I think this is the thing, because I've just been watching this one, which is the Eighth Sun, right? Whatever that
Mm-hmm.
title is, the Eighth Sun.
Eight son, are you kidding me?
What is this?
I'm watching it.
What's the Hachinan Te Sora wa Nai Desho?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one. I've read the manga. I even read. I don't know if it was the light novel or web novel, and the anime is very different from what I remember. It's like it's almost its whole its own little thing going on. That's hitting at least a few key points, like how he meets and creates his team. So let me give a little bit of backstory for anyone who's not watching this. This is your isekai show. The guy, he wakes up, he finds himself inside a 6-year-old body. I don't know if he died. I think it was overwork, right, or something like that.
He kind of fall asleep while trying to have a dinner, no?
I can't really remember. Like I said, it's been a long time since I've read this, whatever sources they may have taken this from. But he wakes up, finds out he's the eighth son, and he realizes that he's not really going to have that great of a future if he doesn't get ahead of things. So he starts trying to improve in his lifestyle by learning magic and learning the sword. Eventually, he finds a wandering spirit in the forest who just so happens to be a magician whose long wish was to have a disciple, which resonates with him. So it teaches him how to use magic, and also he learns some sword skills, I believe, from his family, because his family is a family of knights. And so he let me see what happens in the anime. So the anime kind of goes over all of that somewhat quickly, and that's where I kind of had a problem with it, because in the book that I read, I remember him flying and learning how to fly. He even goes off far away in special adventures to practice, and he ends up meeting an elf girl, which I don't even know if happens in the manga, but maybe it's something that they decided to take out because it wasn't really into the story. But he will fly back and forth to different cities, learn how to hunt, catch monsters, and there's just a lot of stuff that he did as a kid that they gloss over to show how he got so skilled at being a fighter and a magician. And even when he goes to the school, which I think is the episode 2 or episode 3, when he starts going to the school where he gets a scholarship for to become a hunter or something like that, some kind of adventure. I can't remember what they called it.
Yeah, adventure school.
Yeah, I think that even played out really different from the manga or the book, because I remember him meeting the boy, teaming up with the boy and going out, and then the girls are attacked, and the boys save the girls, and then that's how they meet each other and become a team, and it shows them getting close too. But none of that really happens. It's just like, oh, he's just gonna point him out, and say that's my team, just randomly and stuff, and it doesn't show them getting close, becoming friends, and so I'm having some problems with that. But I'm just gonna have to reset myself for this show and just think of this as a entirely new thing. For some books, I just have to do that, because if I just try to compare it to what I know, it's gonna drive me crazy. But this is very different from at least the sources I've read or remember it coming from. Like, even in the opening, they show this girl with a big axe, and I don't even know who she is. I've never seen her. So, what about you, Vinny? Did you ever...
Yeah, I watched it. I mean, I'm watching it so far.
Did you ever read the manga, though?
No. I generally stay away from isekai manga unless it has cooking involved. So I have no idea how different it is to be with a manga or web novel or any other source material. But I think the biggest problem I have with this series, other than the fact it's painfully generic, is that opening music. It's like, why is that so hard boiled? It's like 90s style shrieking going on in the music.
I skipped all that, so I don't know what you're talking about. But I'm going to have to go check that out, too.
No, because, I tried to watch the whole thing, including opening and ending music at least for the first episode, and it completely took me by surprise, because that's not what I would expect to hear from those typical isekai fantasy series. But otherwise, has a makings of a pretty generic, average isekai series. And the only other thing that probably bothered me is that how they just lazily laid out there, so that everything is written in Japanese. All the books over there is Japanese, despite the fact that everybody seemingly have this German novelty names through and through. But all the books are written in Japanese, and he even unashamedly kind of say from the get-go, oh, somehow I can read this. Oh, everything's written in my native language of Japanese. It makes no sense. It's like, where's the logic to this? They usually try to circumvent all the issues by saying, oh, I was born with this like auto translator ability built into my head, so I can just magically read it through or translate it. But this one doesn't even bother any of that. It's just everything's laid out and written in Japanese through and through.
Yep.
I'd like to think that it's going to hit just slightly above average as far as even the most average of the isekai ones I've watched, because you at least have a character who's not on a power trip, while he acknowledges that he's well, he probably doesn't even realize, I don't know if he's depicted in the manga as having a different attitude about this or not, but at first he really didn't get how exactly rare his ability with magic was. And I think even into his interactions with his classmates and other nobles, just where he's at now in his life, because stuff seems easy to him, he's still being really humble about it. So it's not just this character who says oh, I've got this, I could probably handle this, or I'm gonna do all this stuff. But I don't know, I actually think that I kind of like this one a little bit better than a lot of the other ones that I've seen, not comparing it to the power trip ones.
Yeah, this show is really hard to say where it's gonna go, if it's gonna be good or bad. But so far, um, the only CG big bass was this dragon, and it, I would say, didn't look too bad, but they need to work on that flying animation for the character. Some scenes where they show him like moving and everything, I'm like, oh my god, it looks
Dude,
terrible.
I figured they almost like had a Photoshop layer where they grabbed the guy and just started him around the screen with cursor.
Yeah, like they didn't even put any motion, like he's moving this way or this way, just like slide, slide. But
I don't know.
yeah. But like I said, I'm gonna have to step back and reset myself to watch this and think of it as something completely different. I may go back and check the manga and see if my memory was right, because like I said, there's just a lot of stuff that seems a lot different. I wish they put more focus into, and also I don't know if it's glossing over a bunch of things or if I'm just missing, there's maybe content at the end of the episode, because like at one point it showed like he was in his house and he's like, oh man, I'm gonna have to live here all alone, I hope someone will move in. Then the next thing you know, he's got the list with all his friends, like they've been living there and they got the chores spread out. I'm like, when did he ever talk to them about them moving in or anything like that? Did they just gloss over all of that, or was there something I missed?
One of the things that I somewhat enjoy that I forgot to mention earlier is like how, as I said, the character is humble. That's actually kind of somewhat true about like a lot of his family, because like they are far removed from like the royal capital city. They are essentially out in the boonies or in the sticks, as we'd say, and their whole family doesn't know much about extravagance, despite being ever so technically nobility. And only when like people are seemingly getting married is it a time to actually spend money lavishly and like hide the decrepit state your house is in, actually have decent food that's not just mostly water. And I would say that I kind of like that coming from poverty angle that the initial part kind of it started with, but that doesn't seem to, now that it's moved to him like actually being in school and becoming an adventurer. I don't think that it's going to focus on the the poverty of like where he came from, but I appreciated it at least to some extent, because like not a lot of isekai kind of say, oh, we're of nobility, but we're actually not that well off.
Yeah, it's definitely a different angle from your typical isekai.
Yep. Well, let's move on to the next title. What is this? BNA?
Brand new animal, I believe, is how you pronounce that. By the way,
brand new anime
animal
on
Animal.
on
Brand new anime.
on Netflix. This is on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
Is all of it out on Netflix, or is it a Japan only Netflix?
Japan only, and I think only first 6 episodes came out so far.
Yeah, I think it all came out all at once, like a month ago or so.
It says March 21st. It was put on.
So yeah, a month ago.
So yeah, I saw a fan sub of it. I don't know, that it's like this appeared just at the beginning of the lockdown, and for me it was like the right thing at the right time, because it's just like simple and cute, and it's a Trigger show, it's a Yoshinari show, and I know it's kind of a meme at this point to compare Yoshinari to Saturday morning cartoons, but as long as he keeps making anime that are exactly like Saturday morning cartoons, then the comparison works. So the girl, it's about a girl who turns into an animal girl and makes her way to the animal city where the animal people live. And there's a hero of the animal city, and he fights crime, and she sort of becomes his partner because she also has superpowers. Because even though she says she's a raccoon, but she's a tanuki, of course, and she can like shapeshift and do lots of interesting stuff. So every episode they fight crime. There's some, lightweight ruminations on prejudice. It's not Beastars. It's not like heavy like Beastars. It's not heavy and unpredictable. This is just lightweight, delightful action anime fare. Kids can watch it.
Probably closest to Zootopia.
Yeah, it's kind of like Zootopia. Yeah. I don't know. I like it. It's I like that it's a trigger show that doesn't go over the top with anything. Because that's sort of how I feel about trigger shows lately. You look at Frank's and it tries to like overreach in a million different directions. Like it just can't help itself. But this thing is, it has like a modest goal and it can execute that, pretty easily. So I like that it has, well, the word isn't coming to me.
I watched that first episode so far, and so far, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a trigger show. It's interesting enough, it's fun enough, and it's not taking itself too seriously. I'm just waiting for all this cross-shaped light beams raining down. It's like I'm wondering where is it? I saw the explosion, but where's the cross-shaped beams? That's what I'm missing about. And that's pretty much what I have to say.
Yeah, I like that it's not too formulaic. You know how if you're watching a straight up Hiroyuki Imaishi show, you're like, okay, here's the tournament arc. We have to pay homage to the tournament arc, so you know what the next 5 episodes are going to be. This one, it's episodic and they switch it up. They're not stuck in a tournament arc. There's even a baseball episode, but it's a fun baseball episode. Because Imaishi storyboards that one himself, so it's a very wacky episode.
So I heard if you like Beastars, you should watch this.
That's not untrue. I think if you like Beastars, you'll also watch this too, even though they're not that similar, but they are in the ways that matter.
I actually started watching Beastars, and I gotta say it's been pretty fun. Can't wait to finish it.
Yeah. Beastars is cool. It's like another show. You don't know where it's gonna go. That's what I liked about Beastars is you couldn't predict what it's gonna be doing in the next episode because it's always like changing.
So I don't know. We don't have really many other titles out there that we can all talk about. Maybe let me go over here and change.
Been any movies lately? Like I still haven't watched that Violet Evergarden thing.
I know. What was that? Premiere,
yeah.
That came out on the Google video movie store.
Oh, I want to see that.
So you can check that out, rent it, and buy it or whatever. I'm going to buy it and watch it.
It has its moments. I think everyone in the world loves that movie except for me. But even I'll say it has its moments.
I wouldn't say I love it. I was okay with it. Trigger still only has like 1 or 2 things that I want to own of theirs.
So let me do this just real quick. Go on.
Is that Jessica Darling in the Franxx and Kiss Niber or what?
That's Goodman.
Jessica, we got Fruit Baskets, the 2nd season.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I thought it finished when it ended. I didn't know there was going to be another season.
No, there's another season. They are going to adapt all of the manga. So
That's gonna take forever.
Yes, that's going to be a lot of Fruits Basket.
So was the first season the direct, all the way up to where the first one, Fruit Baskets?
Yes,
ended?
Yes and
Yes.
no. The first anime really cut out a lot. And they changed a few character motivations and stuff so that you couldn't say watch the 2001 Fruits Basket and continue on with the 2nd season of the 2021. it wouldn't work because the characters are completely different. Thanks, Sean. So I think the first season went up to volume 6. I want to say. Do you know, Vinny, where it stopped in the manga?
I think it's about volume 5 or 6. I haven't read that series in a long time. But to add to your points, when the original Fruits Basket animation happened way back in 2001 or so, the series was still ongoing, and so they actually have to wrap it up with a make-believe ending for the animation only. So that kind of puts I don't know, it's damped down the weirdness that happens in the later part of the Fruits Basket. And when this series came about, I think they made it pretty clear by stamping on the first season that there's gonna be second season unless the company goes bankrupt or what have you. So
Yes. The director for the original, Akitaro Daiichi, I think, actually came out and said that he did not like the original manga. So he made a lot of changes to it. And don't get me wrong, I loved the original, but I don't think it's aged very well. It was one of the DigiPaint casualties where the animation looks pretty gross if you have a large TV because the resolution is just so junky. But anyway, long story short, if you like the first season, you should definitely continue on with the second one.
But you should watch
animation
the first one.
quality is pretty. Yeah, you should definitely watch the first season if you're gonna carry on to second.
It's worth it.
And
Have a handkerchief nearby because you're gonna cry. You're gonna it'll get you right in the feels. It's beautiful.
they definitely did spare no expenses of making it look very pretty, so I do appreciate that.
Same. It's one of my favorite manga that I've ever read. And so it's just wonderful to see it come to life on screen with all of the respect that it deserves.
So is this like what did I want to say? I forgot what I was going to say. Okay, just forget it.
If you think of it, send me a message later.
Oh wait, okay, sorry. Did they finish the anime or manga?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
so this.
21 volumes, I think.
Oh, okay.
21 volumes, somewhere around there.
Let's see. 23 volumes.
Oh, 20? Okay. I have the special edition where they combined multiple volumes, so it's hard to tell.
Right. Those are big ones that you can kill somebody with.
Yeah, I love them. And you should read the manga too if you like shoujo. But I don't think it would be a bad thing to only watch the anime because the author Takaya Natsuki injured herself partway through drawing Fruits Basket, and so her art noticeably changes. Because she took some time off work, and I don't think she fully recovered when she came back. So if you're really picky about your manga art, you can definitely tell where the injury happened.
Right. Well, thank you for that. I honestly didn't know. So I saw season 2. I was like, wait a minute, did they stop midway then during the Fruit Basket thing before? Or did it not finish? I was also really curious about that. So now that I know, I'm gonna. Well, we have the time. I can catch up, as long as Final Fantasy doesn't block me.
Ooh, that's a tough call.
But yeah. So, thank you everyone for watching. I'd like to thank everyone here for joining me. Albert in the chat was with us the whole time, so thank you, Albert, for being there with us, even if you couldn't be there visually. You were there in spirit, sharing all those amazing pictures and stuff. If anyone ever wants to join us in these discussions, or even just join us in the chat that we have here, don't be afraid to comment, leave a message. We do have our Discord, OreAni Discord out there that we don't really talk too much on there, but every once in a while someone posts something, and yeah, it's just been a great group to be around with for all these years. And maybe we can hold another meeting with all this downtime we have just to chat and stuff since the lockdown or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We can catch up again. I do want to mention again that J Novel has a lot of their books for free to read, and also you can get a 1 month free subscription if you want to read some light novels. I've been with them for almost 3 years now, and if you have a premium account, they give you a free book every month. And other than that, you can read all their volumes on their website, which is not too bad on a phone. I actually read a lot of their stuff using my phone, just using the website rather than their app. I don't know. I tried the app once and it was not that good, but the website on the phone was decent.
Is that why you're slacking up, Captain?
A little bit. I slack off there. They've even gotten some licenses to manga, so you can check out some of their manga. I know they have some interesting titles, like they had Orphan, Full Metal Panic, I think it was. The Lazy Dungeon Master is one of my favorite. But other than that, any of you guys want to promote something for during this pandemic, maybe that we can waste our time with?
I don't know about pandemic related, but when we do the end of the spring season, I guess we should talk a little bit about all those anime series that got delayed, and maybe if there's any changes with the theatrical release, because a lot of them got pushed to indefinitely. So it'll be interesting to see if they're going to be resuming in theater or it's just going to be sent directly to streaming.
Yeah, wasn't there supposed to be a Fate Stay Night movie coming out soon? Or
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah. Just when anime movies were coming out in storm in theaters, now we have this.
I'd argue that it got started like a while ago.
But yeah, they canceled my convention, so hopefully when this ends, I'll be able to join another convention somewhere else to make up for it. So.
Well, mine in November is still ongoing, so we'll see. Fingers
I
crossed.
just know because I was going to attend it this year that the largest North American anime convention did get canceled for early July.
So, Vinny, let me keep notes with me because I got free, airfare because of some cancellations that happened for me. So I can go to there.
Yeah.
But
it's on, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So everyone, please try to be a little more active on Discord. I like to know what's going on with some shows, especially that baseball show.
The fate of Tamayomi. Oh boy.
So
priorities, much tank. Priorities.
So thank you, everyone. If you're watching, thank you for supporting us. And goodbye.
Bye bye.
And yes.